Righty, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
So on the night of January 13th, 2012, a cruise ship was sailing off the coast of Italy. This cruise ship had over 4,000 people on board. I would ask, if you are nodding off, your head is down, show the respect to get out of the chair, come over, and stand in parade rest at the side of the pews. So the cruise ship is sailing off the coast of Italy in the winter of 2012. The captain of the cruise ship was a very proud captain. He liked to wear his uniform. He liked to be seen with the ladies. He liked to be seen commanding and directing. And the big pomp and circumstances associated with being the cruise ship skipper was a big deal to this gentleman. One of the things he chose to do when he was sailing on this 7-stop cruise off the coast of Italy was he was going to do a pass around an island off the coast of Italy. Now, I don't know how many of you, if any of you, have been to Europe or to the coast of Italy, but it is very rocky. It's mountains coming down to the sea. There's many of these mountains are formed by, in the sea, or kind of sticking out of the Mediterranean Sea, and he was going to do a very close pass to salute this village off the coast of Italy. It was probably best described as showing off, is what he was doing. And this was, in the evening, in the winter, 4,000 people aboard the vessel. The vessel came too close to the island and hit a rock, scraped the hull of the vessel, and tore a huge gash in the vessel. The vessel started taking on water. Now, most of you are familiar perhaps a little bit with the Army and some of the principles of the Army. Well, I will tell you, in the Navy, the captain is in charge of the ship. He is the law. He is the person people look to at all times for guidance. He's the person that people look to for what the direction is. When crises happen, he's the guy that's to be looked towards. This captain, who was known for, again, being flashy, wearing the uniform proudly, commanding and directing, when the ship started taking on water, didn't tell anybody for the longest time. The Italian Coast Guard found out about this incident, and people started with their cell phones calling ashore saying, hey, we've got problems here with this vessel. The vessel starts taking on a lot of water. It loses power. It starts to go in what's called a list. What a list means is if you sail directly like this, when water starts coming on board the vessel, it starts tilting like this. So if you can imagine, the ship is tilting like this about 11 o'clock at night, in the cold, in the dark, off the coast of Italy. The captain at this point finally gives the order, abandon ship, let the lifeboats down. They start evacuation of 4,000 people off this vessel. The captain makes the decision and takes the action, shall we say, because whether he made the decision, he will refute. But at about 11 o'clock at night, when there's still over 300 people on board the vessel, that he gets in a lifeboat and leaves. 300 people still on the vessel. He gets on. The Italian Coast Guard is doing everything they can to solve this situation. They are calling in helicopters. They are scrambling boats, fishing boats, whatever it is to save people. The Italian Coast Guard finally finds the captain in a lifeboat. And there's many interesting exchanges which are recorded for posterity on YouTube and various media of the Italian Coast Guard first requesting and then ordering and then essentially demanding that the captain get back in the vessel and take charge of the rescue. They didn't know what they were dealing with. They had no idea who was in charge. He didn't leave anybody. Well, he left somebody in charge, and they evacuated right after he did. They're trying to frantically get 350 some odd people off the vessel. He is sat in a lifeboat, cowering. And again, the Italian Coast Guard is essentially pulling their hair out, trying to get him back in the boat. He wouldn't go. The investigation later finds him guilty of gross negligence and not performing what he was supposed to do, and also manslaughter for over 32 people that passed away. Again, 32 people that passed away, and he is found guilty of negligence of their death. He was sentenced to 16 years in prison, and to this day, he is serving time in an Italian jail. So I would ask you, what did that Italian skipper of this pleasure boat, what did he fail to do? Anybody?
Take action.
What did he fail to do?
Take responsibility for his actions.
Be a leader.
Yeah, all good answers. I would suggest you're all right, and where I'm talking about today is duty. If you look up on Wikipedia, their definition of duty is this. Duty is a term that conveys a sense of moral commitment or obligation to someone or something. The moral commitment should result in action. It is not a matter of passive feeling or mere recognition. So there's an action component of it. It's not I want to do my duty. It's actually doing something. When someone recognizes a duty, that person theoretically commits himself to its fulfillment without considering his own self-interest. I can't put myself in the mind of that captain, but it's evident that his self-interest is more important to those 32 people and those 300 and some odd people who were on the vessel with him. This is not to suggest that living a life of duty entirely precludes a life of leisure. However, its fulfillment generally involves some sacrifice of immediate self-interest. Typically, the demands of justice, honor, and reputation are deeply bound with duty. Webster, the dictionary, defines duty as this, very simply: a moral or legal obligation. I say it again: a moral or legal obligation. An obligation. Cicero, who was an ancient Greek philosopher, said that duty comes from sources including being human as a result of one's character, as a result of one's own moral expectations for himself. You know, I look at that and I think about that Italian ship captain sitting in jail now, and I can only think every day how true the words of Cicero are. Because ultimately, the decision he made on that night, he's got to live with for the rest of his life. He didn't do his duty. As a Christian, I see the obligation reflected in two verses. Matthew 22, 36 through 37, 3 verses shall I say. Teacher, what's the greatest commandment in the law? Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it: love your neighbor as yourself. And in Romans 13 says, Give to everyone what you owe them. If you owe taxes, pay taxes. If revenue, then revenue. If respect, then respect. If honor, then honor. So again, duty is a legal and moral obligation. It's altogether fitting and proper to talk about duty here at Carson Law. There was a graduate of Carson Law, 1989 class, by the name of Mark Sullins. Mark was an emergency medical technician with Cabrini Medical Center, who was working a double shift in the New York City area on September 11, 2001, when the first plane hit. Without thought for his own safety, he raced to the scene of the trade centers. He pulled people out of the various towers from the South Tower and transported them to the hospital. He returned for a final time to the South Tower and went back in to help more people, despite the growing concern that it may collapse. Mark did not make it home that day. He never made it out of the South Tower when it collapsed on him. Moral obligation. Some of you may be familiar with Penn State, and some of you may have visited Penn State. And you go up there, you're going to find a very old building. It's the campus, where the campus president resides and where the main administrators reside at Penn State. It's called Old Main. If you walk behind Old Main, you'll find a recent monument. This monument has written on it in Greek the following words: "With your shield or on it." I say that again. With your shield or on it. This monument is for Navy Lieutenant Michael Murphy. Navy Lieutenant Michael Murphy, in July 2005, was a Navy SEAL in Afghanistan. He was inserted into the Korangal Valley, which I will tell you is in the Hindu Kush, which are some of the most treacherous mountains in the world, based on actionable intelligence of a Taliban terrorist. He and 3 other Navy SEALs. When they came upon the village, they were discovered by shepherds that were herding goats. A decision had to be made. Do we kill them because they might inform the Taliban we're here, or do we let them go? Michael Murphy's team let them go. A legal or moral obligation. Of course, the goat herders immediately went and informed the Taliban, and the Taliban immediately came out of the village in a huge group of fighters and attacked the 4 Navy SEALs. Michael Murphy and his group of Navy SEALs put up a valiant defense for what were soon to be overrun. The last hope they had was somehow contacting U.S. forces at other locations to try and get some sort of relief brought into these guys. The only way that Michael Murphy's telephone, his satellite telephone, could work was if it's the high ground of the mountain. What Michael Murphy did is he ran out from the behind the cover where he was after having already been shot twice, once in the stomach, once in the side, and took his satellite phone up into an exposed area and dialed back to headquarters. He got through. And he explained what needed to be happened. And then he was shot. He was brought to his knees. He didn't die there. While he was severely wounded, the last words he heard to say on the phone was, "Thank you, sir." and then he continued to fight. One of his teammates, Marcus Luttrell, was listening to him as he was beyond the perimeter, and he's screaming out, Lieutenant Murphy, "Marcus, I need help, I need help." And Marcus could do nothing for him at that point. And then the scream stopped. And Mike Murphy had bled out. Legal and moral obligation. For his actions on what's now called Murphy's Ridge, Lieutenant Michael Murphy was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. The Congressional Medal of Honor for his actions. I recommend you go to Penn State someday and go to his monument and perhaps say a prayer. Legal and moral obligation. Robert Baden Powell, who was the founder of the Boy Scouts, once made the comment, "We never fail when we try and do our duty. We always fail when we neglect to do it." And as you can see from the examples I provided, one failure, two successes, I would tell you those two gentlemen, Mark Sullins and Michael Murphy, while they're no longer with us, they did not fail. The other gentleman that's sitting in a prison somewhere has got to live with that decision every day. George Washington once said, "The consideration that human happiness and moral duty are inseparably connected. We'll always continue to prompt me to promote the progress of the former by doing the practice of the latter. Happiness and moral duty are connected." General Robert E. Lee said, "You do your duty in all things. You cannot do more, and you should never wish to do less." In all things. And that points to an example that I want to make about duty. You know, I gave some examples that are pretty dramatic. You know, one example is a ship going down. One example is an EMT running into the trade centers. One example is a SEAL leading a firefight in a valley in Afghanistan. I would suggest to you that duty is much more than that. Duty also includes the little things. The little things make up your legal and moral obligations. Little things like when you're on the subway train and it's crowded, and you see an elderly person in the subway, and you get out of your seat and you say, you may have my seat, I'll stand. Staying awake on sentry duty when you're staring at an empty desert in a place like Basra, Iraq on Christmas Eve. Getting up in the cold and dark and doing your physical training when your head hurts and you fell into bed at whatever time. Returning change to a store owner when you find she gave you too much. Opening the door for a man or a woman behind you. Standing up for somebody that can't stand up for themselves. Telling the truth, making your bed, visiting your grandparents. All duty. All legal and moral duty. It also includes answering the call when your country needs you. And that kind of leads to where we are today, a couple days before Veterans Day. On Saturday, we will honor people from this academy and from throughout Perry County that did their duty. Now, I will tell you, everybody that we're honoring is not somebody that won the Medal of Honor, won the Bronze Star, did something dramatic. What we're honoring is those people that served in the military. Somebody that did something for they felt was illegal or a moral obligation. Veterans Day was initially established, and you wonder why it's on the 11th of November, as what was called Armistice Day. It was for those American soldiers that fought in World War I. World War I ended at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. 11 November at 11 o'clock. That's when the parade is going to be going on. After World War II, President Eisenhower opened it up to all folks that had served in the military. So that's what we're honoring. We're not honoring those that died, we're honoring those that served, those that did their moral duty. So I ask you, when you look at these folks and you think about what's out there on Saturday, who are these guys? I think Andy Youngworth shot down 6 times in Vietnam in a Huey helicopter. I think Reese's grandpa fought the Germans in World War II. I think of countless other veterans that are on the wall in our Gold Star platoon. When the bell rings 34 times, I want you to think about who these people were. It's interesting, in Perry County, my wife Wendy is a social worker, and what that means is she goes to people's houses in Harrisburg or Perry County every day and tries to provide them the help they might need. What she runs into when she goes out there countless times is a wife or a spouse or a daughter or a son trying to explain to her about what this person, this old gentleman may have done. Because my wife followed me around for 30 years in the military, places like Normandy, Chosin Reservoir, Da Nang, to name a few, are familiar. And it's interesting, these gentlemen never want to talk about what they did. And when she asked them what he did, the predominant answer they got is, "Oh, it's not that much. I was merely doing my duty." Legal or moral obligation. So when we stand out there in the cold on Saturday, what we are doing is we are honoring people that did their duty for their country at behest of their own self-interest. I'd like to read a proclamation from the President of the United States. During National Veterans and Military Families Month, we honor the significant contributions made by American service members, their families, and their loved ones. We set aside this month surrounding Veterans Day to hold observances around the country to honor and thank those whose service and sacrifice represent the very best of America. We renew our nation's commitment to support veterans and military families. They deserve it. Our veterans are our heroes. Our armed forces have preserved the security and freedom that allow us to flourish as a nation. They have braved bitter winters, treacherous jungles, barren deserts, and stormy waters to defend our nation. They have left their families to face danger and uncertainty. They have endured the wounds of war, all to protect our nation's interests and ideals established during the founding. It is our patriotic duty to honor veterans and military families. This month, in which Americans traditionally pause to give thanks for our blessings, it is fitting that we come together to honor with gratitude our extraordinary veterans and military families for their service to our country. May God continue to bless our armed forces and those in their families who love and support them. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States. Gentlemen, duty. I challenge each and every one of you to do your legal and moral obligation. On Saturday, we will honor those that have come before. With that, we are on to the reading of the Gold Star.